Why is it? Mm, why? Please don't text me right now. When we talked about that, I said that there are two basically factors of production. Initially, there were four: land, labor, capital, enterprise. So when a business is making decision, it's usually the enterprise or the entrepreneurs who are making the decision on behalf of the business. Agreed? Okay. Then land is sort of fixed. The major decision that a business has to make with regards to their production, it is either it's about whether they employ labor or they employ capital. So this is called choosing between labor intensive and capital intensive approaches. Concept board. So in this particular unit we would be looking at how a business it when it chooses for labor, or even if it's going for capital intensive method, the labor that it uses in the business, how does it manage that? This is what will be approach of the business, approach of the business with regards to its staff. Okay. uh, have you ever heard the term small and medium sized enterprises? The businesses, the big corporates that we usually get to hear about, they are businesses which employ workers in sometimes in thousands, or their workforce is quite huge. Then there are small businesses. For example, I've got the small academy and I've got just three more teachers with me for other subjects. All right. Then there might be businesses who have a few more employees with them, not as few as there in my academy. So while making policies and while studying different types of businesses, it makes sense to see these businesses differently or to analyze differently because their behavior would be different. So the first distinction that we make in this regard is between large businesses, medium sized businesses, and small sized businesses. So I say large, medium sized, and small sized. Okay. Large, medium, and small sized. The foremost, there could be a number of criteria that I use to distinguish between sizes of business. Here, when I'm saying large business or small business or medium sized business, my main criteria is staff. So for small businesses, I have 1 to 50 people, 1 to 50 employees. Okay, for medium sized businesses, I have up to 250 employees. You're still feeling sleepy? And for large businesses, we have which thing? The comment? I'll do it. Click the arrow and then click on this comment, and then maybe you'll be able to remove it. Done. Hmm. 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 Okay. So more than 250 employees would be a large sized business. Okay. Then this is the first thing, that how we categorize businesses based on how much how much how many how many employees they have. Excellent. The next thing is that a business which has employees, it can take two approaches with regards to its employees. First of all, it can say that the employees that I've employed, they are an asset for the business, and the other approach could be that they say that these employees, they are a cost to the business. What would be the change or difference in behavior of the business if it were to treat its employees as an asset or as a cost? So first point is higher salaries, or you would say that acceptable remunerations. And in case of if you're treating them as a cost, then you will try to minimize your cost or as low remuneration as possible. Later, I think we'll get to see different ways a business can remunerate their employees. So it includes salaries and it includes other ways as well. So that is why I've not used the term remuneration, the salaries over here. Okay, any other difference that would be there in the business if it treats business its employees as asset or as cost? One second. Happier working conditions. Hmm. Okay. Safe and comfortable working environment. Safe and comfortable working environment. They'll make sure that employees, while they're working, they feel safe at work. For example, okay,
Hello?
there are proper laws which are there, or there are proper rules which are there to alleviate the or to address the concerns of employees. For example, if an employee he feels that he is being treated unfairly by his supervisor, there should be a proper mechanism to address that. Okay, or if an employee feels that the environment that he has to work in, for example in refineries where you have to work in silos and you have to go to like very you have to work at heights and uh, maybe work in environment where things can quickly catch fire. So employee at all times he must feel safe, he must not feel unsafe at work. Or maybe they're asked to work in remote sites where they feel that they might get robbed or things of that sort. So any fears, with regards to physical safety, for example employee he must not constant, if an employee he feels constantly threatened that anytime he can get fired, such an employee would not be able to work, or work in a conducive manner. And it shows that if an employee has constantly been under this threat, that in any under any sort of threat, it shows that it's not really a priority of the business to address such concerns of employees. So maybe they are treating them as a cost as opposed to treating them as asset, right?
Uh-huh.
Okay. There, what would happen? There, what would happen? Um, so there would be, uh, in case of cost, minimum legal employee rights. So there are certain employee rights which you have to provide uh, as they have been legislated. So you'll be providing, just making sure that you provide enough rights to these employees so that there can't be a legal case against you.
Uh-huh.
Anything else?
Uh, uh,
Okay. One thing we'd learn about later on is investment and training of employees. So here you would conduct trainings, and we'll later see that there are different sorts of training. There is on the job training, off the job training. In any case, you would have the you'll see that employees, first of all, whenever they're inducted, you'll have them undergo certain training to get them ready for the role that they have been hired for.
mhm,
The next thing after each, you'd be concerned, we know that people, if their work becomes monotonous, they feel bored and their motivation level goes down. So we
mhm,
must constantly train them for newer skills, and we must have them work at different, for example, job roles and job rotation. And there are a few methods which we use to keep employees motivated.
uh-huh.
Okay, so if day in day out I just tell you that you have to do maths P1, and then you have to do maths P1 again, and then you have to do maths P1 again, and then you have to uh, initially your learning curve would rise, then it would become stagnant, and then it might even decline. But your
Uh-huh.
motivation for sure would decline if you feel that you're not improving. So here,
Mhm,
uh, training is ignored, or investment in training is ignored. Anything else?
No.
Training is ignored. Okay, another thing which you do not yet know, when you have got employees as an asset, we later see that there are various recruitment approaches as well and recruitment methods in unit one or later on. So businesses, they would invest a lot in the recruitment process as well, just to make sure that you are employing the right type of employees for your business. Or
Uh-huh.
over here, you might be using cheap and inferior methods for recruitment.
Uh-huh.
Inferior recruitment methods. Uh, with regards to the HR function that we are about to, I mean, that we have just started studying, uh, think of the employee life cycle within the organization. There is induction, then there is employee working for the organization, and then there is employee leaving the organization. So broadly speaking, bird eye view, these are the three instances or three major steps in employees relationship or timeline with the employer.
Bird eye
Usually,
view?
hmm,
What is that?
bird eye view.
Yeah.
Bird eye view is that if you are looking something from very far up ahead, you only see
Uh,
the
bird's eye view.
sorry, bird's eye view. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
that.
Okay.
Okay. Um, so here you will have effective leadership. So all questions, or generally speaking, when you're thinking about the HR function or a question related to it, you must think about one way of thinking about HR problems is the induction, um, experience, and employee leaving the organization. In terms of these three things, the way we have one framework to think about marketing is the four P's. Whenever you have to think about marketing, think about the four P's of marketing mix.
Okay.
Okay. You'll have effective leadership, you'll give them chances of promotion. You'll have chances of promotion, and you'll give them chances to solve problems and be creative. Be creative. There you would you'd more be focused on penalties if for even small deviations of behavior. So, for example, somebody turns up late for work one day, you'd immediately impose a penalty on them. Uh, behavior. Okay. Okay. Then there is a thing called zero hour contracts. We'll learn about these zero hour contracts in a bit. Zero hour contracts. Okay. So
Oh.
this is how would have. Okay, quickly go through activity one, and if you could give me answers to question number one and two.
Activity one.
Case study. This W.L. Gore and Associates.
Uh-huh.
Done.
Almost. Yes.
Okay, so answer to question number one.
Describe one piece of evidence that could suggest that treats its staff as assets. Um, they give them wo- this flexible working hours. Okay,
How
that
does
is one
that prove
piece of
that they
evidence.
treat? I mean, how does that prove that they treat their employees as assets?
This is because they feel like their employees just need the what do you say their own this thing time to think or whatever blah 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 in their, and do their work in their own comfort zone, which
Hmm.
will
So
improve their productivity.
they want to give room to their employees so that they bring out their best possible work. Usually, when
Yeah.
you need to have employees carry out creative tasks, you need to give them more room. And when you need to
Uh,
have your employees fixed particular task where you know that this is the task that I'm employing you for, and you have to do it the way I tell you, then you'll give them
uh-huh.
less and less room.
Uh-huh.
Okay, and later on when we study the leadership styles, we'll also see that each approach is suited to certain situations. We look that over there. Okay, next
Uh-huh.
question please.
Next question. From advantage to WI go and sources of treating the staff this way. Um, their pri their sales revenue was 2,900 million. So that's it.
Hmm.
They
in
make more
absolute
money
terms
when their staff is happy.
Hmm. In absolute terms, just looking at somebody's revenue, I cannot comment whether it's good or bad. What if their costs are 3,000 millions?
Mm-hmm.
Number one. What if someone else in the same business as them is earning 3,500 millions? Okay. So,
Mm-hmm.
looking at revenue of a business in just absolute terms, we cannot comment. So, it all comes down to they're treating their staff
10,000
as.
people.
Hmm, they're treating their staff as asset. Why would they treat their staff as asset? Usually the businesses which are in either in creative work or in
Mm-hmm.
services industry, they have usually no option but to treat, I mean, place high value on their staff. For creative work, if your employees are motivated, they'll be able to produce better work.
More, yeah.
Okay, and better work would help you create your USP, and that would help you increase your sales. The same way,
Mm-hmm.
if employees are motivated, they wouldn't want to leave this business.
Mm-hmm.
That would not only be a better reputation among the other potential employees among in the industry, they would be the
Mm-hmm.
best people. Obviously, when you know that some organization is good, everybody would want to work for them, including the
Mm-hmm.
best people in the industry who could do this task. One. The
Mm-hmm.
other thing is that your employee turnover cost would decrease. So every time you have an employee leaves, it creates a few problems. It gives a bad reputation to the business if he is leaving
Mm-hmm.
because of some problem with the business, or if the business is not paying them well.
Mm-hmm.
Similarly, there would be it would make other employees leave as well, make them want to leave as well. Not in the absolute terms. I mean,
Okay.
it would plant seeds in their heart that maybe we should consider leaving as well. Then, for the time that the position is vacant, for the time that you have filled their replacement, you have come up with their
Uh-huh.
replacement, work would suffer. Their work would either not get done, or it would be distributed among other workers whose burden would increase and they'd have resentments. The third thing is that you have to incur some costs in hiring. So, for example, advertisement of the job, then the hours of the managers who have to spend their time in scrutinizing the applications, and then finalizing the candidate, interviewing the candidate.
Mhm.
So all these hassles, they could be avoided if your employees, they are treated well, and they are happy about with the business, and as a result the staff turnover is low. Okay.
Uh-huh.
Okay. Then we come to this concept of flexible workforce, which is becoming trendy these days. So, flexible workforce means a few things. If you want to have a flexible workforce, it means that it could mean a few things. The first thing it could mean is that you're going for multi-skilling. So, you have your
Uh-huh.
employees trained in multiple roles, and you could have them perform various roles. So it not only motivates the employees that after joining the organization, their skill level it increased, or now they'll feel good about themselves that they can perform various roles. It would also help the
Mhm.
business that they can allocate these employees to whichever task which is needed by the business. For example, if like there is pressure in one area and you need more workforce catering to a particular function, you could divert your workforce, most of your workforce towards that area. Okay.
Mhm.
The problem with multi-skilling is, uh, first of all, as your employees they gain more and more skills, in turn they'll demand more remuneration as well.
Uh-huh.
Eventually they'll demand more remuneration as well. The other thing is that, all right, multi-skilling, but then that comes at the cost of specialization. These employees, are they specialized in a certain task or not? Or you, if you
Uh-huh.
have them continuously switching roles, would they be able to do justice to each role that they are switched to? So that's a question mark. Benefit, disadvantage, both things. Then the other thing you could do about this flexible workforce is that you could hire part-time or temporary staff. This thing is like very common. So, for example, in agricultural industry, when there is harvesting season, more people are employed because then mills are running, and you need more workforce to manage the workload. And when
Mhm.
there is like low work pressure in that time, you won't have the staff. So the usual or the historic method of having at least your office work staff, the management people, is that you have annual contracts with them. So a person is hired at least for a year. But here, when we're
Uh-huh.
talking about part-time and temporary staff, these people, we're telling them that we are hiring you for this just particular project, or we are hiring you for a particular period of time only, and
Uh-huh.
thereafter your contract wouldn't continue with us. You'll have to leave. The benefit, what would be the benefit and the downside of such contracts?
The employee would not be motivated to give their best because they know in the end they'll have to go out.
Okay, so from employer's part, the benefit is that they'll save costs. Okay.
Uh,
Secondly, they could, so for example, it happens with women, especially after marriage, that many of them they choose to leave the workforce uh, to take care of the
uh,
family and all those things. So if you offer them part-time contracts, if you have got a really important employee that you feel that you need to have or that should continue working with you can offer them these part-time contracts. Okay.
hmm.
Another thing about, I mean, I don't know if it's so ethical or not. You could engage students as well in the workforce. So people who, for temporary contracts, you'd be offering them lower wages, but somebody who's, for example, pursuing a master's degree, and if the
Uh-huh.
person chooses to work the same, I mean, along with his studies, they can opt for a part-time contract with a certain business. They can work part time.
Oh,
It's quite common among the students, especially those who
uh-huh.
are pursuing postgrad degrees. Okay. The
Uh-huh.
downsides, as you said, would be that first of all, for part-time employees, uh, they might feel like that it's the work is not really important, or they're there for a very short period of time anyhow, so they might not put in a lot of effort into their work. The other thing is that from the business as well, business, it might not give very important or crucial tasks to part-time employees, because they know that these employees would eventually leave. And
Uh-huh.
the from the employee's perspective, if somebody got into this part-time role only because he couldn't find any other task at the moment, he would have resentment, that's why are they not giving me proper responsibility which I could be given.
Uh-huh.
Okay. All right, all right, all right. So then the third thing that we have got is zero hour contracts. So zero hour contracts are that you say to a person, we have this contract with you,
Uh-huh.
we'll call you whenever there is work. Okay.
Okay, but is it a salary based or is it based on
It could
when?
it could be the, for example, piece based job or time based job, that if you work for these many hours, we'll count your hours and pay you accordingly. Or it could be that we'll engage you for a particular month, and then for that particular month we'll pay you.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
Then what's the difference between zero hour contract and part time? I mean, part-time worker, I'm just hiring him whenever there is work. Zero hour contracts also, I'm just asking the person to come when I'll tell him that there is work. So what's the difference between the two?
Can you repeat?
What's the difference between part-time contract, I mean, hiring a person part-time, and having zero hour contract?
I mean, 0 hour, you just part time the person can do can work two places at the same time. Um, no, 0 hour contract, there's no guaranteed pay. Okay, part time also there's no guarantee. No, I don't know.
Okay. Uh, so for zero hour contracts, the thing is that workers, they are to show up for work only when the employer asks them. So
Uh-huh.
when I engage somebody for part-time work, from the moment I engage him from part-time work, he starts working until the time it ends. For
Mhm.
zero-hour contracts, I just have a contract with you that here is our contract for next 1 year. You would be available, and I'll call you when needed. You don't
Uh-huh.
know when I'll call you, and maybe I even don't know at this particular time when I will call you. But there's just an agreement that whenever there is work, I will call you.
Uh-huh.
Okay. It could be that the whole year passes by and there isn't any work at all that I call you for.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
And how much would you get paid? Nothing?
For the time that you don't come to work, usually nothing. But in order to secure somebody's commitment, sometimes you pay them a retainership fee as well.
Retainership as in monthly or
So this is something I think that is close. The lawyers, the law firms. Just one more point about the zero-hour contracts, and then I'll give you this law firm example. Okay.
Mhm.
So the other thing is that the employee, he also has the option that when he's asked to work, he refuses to work.
What?
So I gave you, I'm the employer, your employee. I have a zero-hour contract with you for the next year, for the year 2022.
Yeah, but why? How can I just say no if you're giving me like what do you say,
I didn't say
commitment
about
fees?
retention. Uh, that's the thing. It's not always involved. If
Uh,
there is retainership fee involved, then yes, you'll be obliged to work. If that retainership fee is not involved, then you won't be obliged to work. It would be your choice.
right.
Okay. So a person, he could have zero hour contracts with multiple organizations if he feels like that the time that they all ask me to work are different, so they won't conflict with each other.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay. So in some countries, it mentions that these zero hour workers, they have got they are entitled to some minimum living pay wages. They are allowed some Money, they have rights against illegal wage reductions, etc.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay, so in hospitality industry, for example, in hotels, when there is seasonal work, so you have your employees coming over at that time, and when there is no work, these employees don't show up for work. They say that Amazon and McDonald's they use this thing. The retainership fee that I was telling, so lawyers they usually work on this model that you engage a law firm, but obviously you are not always in the litigation mode. It could be that somebody someday files a case against you, and that time you go seeking the law firm, but you want to engage a particular law
Uh-huh.
firm. Okay, and it might be that
Uh-huh.
when you actually need them, they are busy with their other cases as well. So then you pay them, you get into a contract
Mm-hmm.
with them that will pay you a retainership fee. So monthly we'll be paying you this thing, and then we will negotiate separately for the fee for that case, but you will be obliged to take up the case.
Mm-hmm.
It gives examples of a few
So
countries where zero hour
for
contracts
law
are
firms, you
illegal.
said, right? So why is
Hmm.
there a possibility that law firm that needs work? Hello?
I think there's a
Hello?
lag in my voice. My voice is reaching you. Are you there?
Sir?
Hmm. One second. Let me check.
Hello? You can hear me?
No, I cannot. I can hear you. Um.
Okay. You took about 3 seconds to reply. Okay, so this, what do you say? Staff. What was I thinking? So this is
Law
for
firm.
law
Law
firms,
firm.
you said.
Hmm.
So if I say, if I, because anyone can sue you, right? So
Hmm.
why is it illegal for someone to sue you on behalf of the law firm should the law firm gets work to do?
I didn't get it again.
Okay, now that I said it out loud, it sounds pretty illegal to
Hmm.
yeah, you just take like a 0 hour contract and then these with law firm and then these fake people they come and sue you and
Hmm.
the law firm get work to do and they get paid for it.
Hmm. There is a
Also with
close.
zero chance of losing.
Hmm. There is a close enough example. So companies which have taken insurance, all right, and then the company it gets into trouble. Historically, there were cases of fraudulent activity. These companies might do. They might burn their own property. They might burn their own
Huh?
factory to get insurance claim.
What? Ah, yes.
Okay, so
Ah, yes.
obviously, a fraudulent transaction. It would be. I mean, the case wouldn't hold in court.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
This zero hour contract thing is a
What
bit different from the other things you might study later on, but this zero hour contract part, if you could quickly give it a read from start of this zero hour contracts on page 106 of PDF to flexible hours up till this point. Flexible hours, flexible
I
hours
have to
concept
read
is
flexible hours also or till flexible hours?
no till flexible hours. But let me first discuss the flexible hours as well, and then you can read this thing. Oh no. Read zero hour contract. Read zero hour contracts. I'll explain that afterwards.
Uh-huh. So I have to read only hour contracts right now.
Yes.
Um, um, it's, uh, 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 directions have in some countries such. Uh, um, um, yeah, so now.
Okay, so concept of flexible hours, it's also easy to understand, maybe because we have examples of this around us. Flexible hours is that some businesses, they say that employees, they have to work 8 hours a day, and they can choose whatever 8 hours they want in between a given range. So for example, between 8 in the morning and 8 in the evening, out of these 12 hours, you can choose whichever 8 hours suit you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Also, now with COVID, we understand this option of work from home. It used to exist for some businesses even before COVID. All right. There are
Uh-huh.
advantages and disadvantages of having these flexible working hours. Obviously, the advantages that you're giving this concession to the or ease of doing work to the workers. So the main purpose behind this is to uh, motivate workers, that we are not
Mm-hmm.
putting some pressure on you. On your own, you decide. We are giving you freedom to choose. Practically
Uh-huh.
speaking, it becomes a little difficult because, for example, if you're working in a team,
Uh-huh.
no matter if you like to work at a different time, but when your team is working, you'll usually have to work. Or
Uh,
if you choose to work at a time other than that which matches with your team, it would be difficult to coordinate things.
uh-huh.
Okay. Then there is this whole question of whether the efficiency of workers, it goes up or it goes down when they are working as they are working from home.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Uh, all right. Then a business could have a mix of flexible and part-time hours. So usually, and this thing we'd see in the outsourcing. So for example, if you want to get something done by someone, first of all, you say that, all right, you can, normally the working hours for people at our business, they are 8 hours. So you can work for just 3 hours a day, somebody
Mm-hmm.
who wants part time. And then within your business hours, for example, 9 to 5, you can give them the option of choosing whichever 3 hours suit them.
Uh,
Okay. So again, there are all possibilities that a business could make a mix of from these different flexible workforce techniques.
mm,
uh, could you give this one a quick read as well, flexible hours?
flexible. Mhm.
And for work from home, we know that if a business chooses for that, there is a certain advantage to the business. So it makes uh, a rough estimate of how many people actually are going to be in office in a particular day, and then they can reduce their office space accordingly. They can control their rent costs.
Uh-huh.
Obviously, this thing of flexible working hours and work from home, I've explained it to you from a business's point of view. From a worker's point of view, there are certain jobs where you can, for example, had I been working for the audit firm that I used to work for, I would have had
Huh?
to follow their hours. Now that I work for myself, first of all, I can choose this work from home. and I can choose to give home tuitions. That's my choice. And the second thing is I can choose my hours on my own as well.
Hmm. Nice.
Some businesses, and it's not limited to the reason I gave you the example of businesses first is that, all right, for somebody doing their own business, it's easy to imagine that they can choose their own hours. But this option, it's also given by some businesses and even multinationals to their employees.
Hmm. Hmm.
The important thing about your business studies is that whatever you study, you must have the pros and cons of that. I mean, you have to think of why it would work, why would it not work, what's the advantage of this thing, what are the disadvantages of this thing. So for every topic that you study, bear this in mind.
What is this 1 6 months? They also have term of periods of this thing holiday. 1 to 6 months. Is that paid holiday or what?
Mm, I don't have the exact BMW contracts with me, but again, it's a contract between business and its employees. They can choose whichever. It's not law that they have to do this way.
Hmm.
Uh, Things which are legislated are maximum working hours. So, for example, an employee working for you varies from country to country. Many countries, it's 40 hours a week. You can't engage an employee for more than 40 hours a week. That would be illegal in some countries.
40 hours a week is how many?
8 hours a day, 5 days a week.
Ah,
In Europe, they have got this 4 days weekdays, 4 days week, where
four
you
days a
can.
week.
So you ask your employees to come to work for just 4 days. In many countries of the
Hmm.
Europe, it's present this rule.
Hmm.
So like we have got 2 day weekend, they have got 3 day weekend.
Yeah, good for them.
Hmm. I'm not sure, but I think it was there in Germany. I'm not sure about France. Maybe it was there in France as well. Plus, they have
Why,
this law that
why I feel like it depends on the job. Really?
okay, so if this thing has been legislated that you can't have your employee work for more than 4 or 5 days a week, then you'll have to create shifts. If the job
Hmm.
requires that it be monitored or it be carried out 7 days a week, then maybe you'll need to create shifts. So for 4 days a week, you have a full-time worker, and for 3 days, maybe you employ a part-time worker.
Hmm.
Similarly, when you are allowed to engage employees for just 8 hours a day, and there are many businesses for which you need, for example, my brother, he works for this Teradata data warehousing company, and what they do is they provide computer science related, I mean, data related services to various entities. Many of their clients, they are telcos. Telcos, they run their business around the clock, so they need monitoring round the clock. So then what Teradata does is the resources it deploys, that's deployed in shifts. So sometimes he's working from 8 hours in the morning, sometimes 8 hours in the day, and sometimes 8 hours in the night. Round the clock, somebody is working, but you can't have somebody work for more than 8 hours in a given day.
Is that illegal?
Uh, Again, varies from country to country, but yes,
In US, apparently they have 16-hour working days for some laborers.
that is that if you employ them, there is this law about overtime. Then that if you have sometimes, for example, my brother even has to work for more than 8 hours, so that's counted as overtime. In some countries, they have laws over overtime as well, that the rate of overtime should be double that of normal time. In some
Oh.
countries, it's just a practice. In some countries, it might be a law. So it again varies from country to country.
Uh-huh.
Even for
Interesting.
Pakistan, to be honest, I don't know the exact law, but this practice has been followed, and I heard it somewhere that uh, again, with regards to labor laws, there are three sorts of countries. One who do not have
Hmm.
any labor laws to begin with. So
Mm-hmm.
employers and employees, they have whatever they agree upon. That's the thing. Then there is this type of, or this category of countries which have labor laws, but they are not rigorously implemented. Okay,
Uh-huh.
so it's not a question of presence of law, it's a question of enforcement of law. Law enforcement is weak. And then there is third category of countries which have good laws, and those laws are enforced as well. So these Western nations, the Western Europe and
Mm-hmm.
US, these advanced nations, they usually fall in this category where they have work related laws, and those laws are strongly enforced
Well,
as well. Hmm?
you're lagging very much.
Hmm. Let me leave and rejoin the meeting. The internet's a bit slow, but
Uh-huh.
let's see if I'm able to pull it through the remaining session. Okay, so a few more things. Another thing you could do about flexible working, another technique that you can do is outsourcing. So outsourcing is that
Okay.
some part of your business function, you say that I won't hire employees for this myself. I'll just outsource it to some entity which has specialized in it. So there is a function called internal audit. Internal audit is that you impose check and balance within your organization on. So for all these departments of the organization, they're carrying out their tasks, and I set up one department, the internal audit department. It would perform audits on all these functions activities, and it will report directly to the board of directors. It will not report to the management, it will not report to the CEO of the business, it will report directly to the board of directors, so that
Mm-hmm.
it keeps working independently. There is no pressure on this department. uh,
Uh-huh.
Many organizations, they outsource their internal audit department. Many organizations, they
Uh-huh.
outsource their IT department. Some organizations, they outsource their marketing function, some outsource their
Uh-huh.
finance function. So different functions of the organization. The theory behind it is that we are not a business who specializes in this particular task, so maybe have someone who is specialized in the task do it. uh, could be that you lower the costs by doing this as well, could be that you achieve better quality work as a result of this. And what could be the possible downsides of outsourcing?
You don't know who they're gonna hire to do this work,
So first
or
of all,
no pressure on them.
hmm, hmm. So you lose control over the task, and you're
Mm-hmm.
dependent on that particular supplier to for their services, or
Uh-huh.
some other supplier for their services. You're dependent on them.
Uh-huh.
Okay, okay, okay. Employees within the business, if a business down the road chooses to outsource some function, they might react negatively as well.
As in?
As in, they might say that any given day, the organization, they just choose to, whenever you outsource a function, employees who are already working for that function, they would be redundant. They would become redundant. You'll ask them to leave since now the
Mm-hmm.
function has been outsourced.
Mm-hmm.
So the employees of the who are losing the job, they'll for sure feel bad about it, and others, it might create resentment as well, that what if someday the organization just chooses to outsource our function,
Yeah.
so suddenly we lose our job. So
Mm-hmm.
these are the benefits, downsides of outsourcing. Quickly, if you could go through the advantages and disadvantages of flexible workforce. We have gone through many of these, so it's just a matter of quickly going through the list again. Page
Okay.
1, oh, this you can see on the screen, right? This
Yeah.
is page 107 of PDF.
Uh,
There is a theory that what sort of work you should have permanent employees for, what sort of work you should outsource, and for what sort of work you should have temporary employees. So the
Uh-huh.
core purpose of the organization, you will never outsource that work. The core
Mm.
purpose of the organization, the major activities, the main activities, you will never have temporary workers for that. For that, you will have full-time workforce.
Uh-huh.
And then for the peripheral activities, you can outsource that function or have flexible contracts with employees for those.
Yes.
My daughter has got this weird habit. She has got like many tiny fingers, but somehow her nails are strong. So what she would do is she would put her nail in between my fingernail and skin, and she'll just push her finger in.
Nice pain, actual pain. Be careful.
Hmm. Okay, I've got just 3 more minutes, so let me quickly wrap up the remaining important things from this chapter. One, what's the difference between dismissal and redundancy?
Dismissive means you just leave it, and redundancy means a lot
Hmm.
extra.
Mhm. So, redundancy is when you ask the employee to leave because the skill that they're providing you or the task that they used to do, you no longer want it done. So,
Uh-huh.
have you watched that Charlie and the Chocolate Factory?
Yeah.
So, his Charlie's father, he used to work for the toothpaste factory where he would fit the caps on top of toothpaste tubes, right?
Okay. I don't remember.
And then they got a machine to do that, and his father lost his job.
Uh-huh.
So that's both an example of technological unemployment and redundancy.
Hmm.
Okay, dismissal is when you have either broken the terms of the contract
Or
or
you did.
your work is not at par.
Mm-hmm.
So you might be served a notice first, and if you do not correct your behavior, and there are
Why can't
certain
you just say that your work is not par even when it is?
Uh, that's the case. The countries where these laws of work-related laws they're properly enforced, you could take your employer to the court over this. That I have been
Uh-huh.
unfairly dismissed.
Uh-huh.
Okay, and then there are a few things. For example, if you fire a lady over pregnancy, that you feel like that she has become now that she is pregnant, she won't be able to carry out her work properly, and you dismiss her over that. The employer would have to face consequences in the court if this is brought to the court. If you ask someone to work on a religious holiday
Uh-huh.
and they deny, I mean, they don't want to work on that particular day, and you force them to work and they deny, and then you fire them as a result of that, the employer will have to bear consequences. It would be an unfair dismissal. Somebody who has been discriminated over this ethnicity issue and
Uh-huh.
dismissed as a result of that, this would be an unfair dismissal. The
How
employer would
much
have
would
to
a person
compensate.
get?
Again, country to country varies, and even for the countries which have this law, it depends on how much do they file a suit for.
Is it at least like as much as it would be for 1 month pay?
Oh, a lot more than that. A lot more than that.
Okay, so 1 year pay.
At very least, at very least. In law, if you ever get to study, there is this thing called damages. And
Oh
damages,
yeah.
for example, for the emotional suffering that you go through,
Yeah,
the
yeah.
amount is a lot more than the finance.
I ordered something on Talabat the other day,
Hmm, hmm,
and it had some kind of black
hmm,
this thing.
hmm,
I don't know what it was, but it was definitely not supposed to be there.
hmm,
And what do you say? It's ashes.
hmm,
So when you touch it and you spread it around, it spreads like kajal. And
hmm,
so I told them, and then they gave me my money back. They gave me extra pizza, then they gave me
hmm,
50
hmm.
dirham extra. And but thing was,
They
I'm
agree.
still sick from that day. So I don't know if that had anything to do with it.
Hmm.
But if I actually sue them, I could probably get a lot of money for emotional damages, of course.
True, 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 true. Let's keep it till here for today. Inshallah, tomorrow we'll resume from this thing. The chapter isn't complete. There are just a few small things, but it's Isha time over here. I'll inshallah finish this in the next chapter tomorrow.
Okay, inshallah.
All right.
Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.